anything can happen to me, that for any of my fans, if you're watching this or watching my final message, if I ever do die, if anything does happen to me, I would say your success in life and what you want to create for yourself is not pinned on me. I, Tristan Tate, can't make anyone the man that they want to be. There's enough of my content out there. My overall message can be summed up in less than 20 minutes. You could take everything you've heard from me. You can go out there and make it, and you can go out there and do it, regardless if I'm around or if I'm not. And I expect everybody who listened to me and everyone who's a fan of mine and everyone who considers himself as somebody who subscribes to my message to not let anything that happens to me, even if they send me to jail for a decade, derail you. Because just in the way that your failures don't affect me, your success isn't linked to me. So go out there and do it anyway.
His name rarely made headlines, not first anyway. While the world watched Andrew Tate build an empire of controversy, one man stood just behind the curtain. Eyes sharp, silent, calculated. Tristan Tate, the forgotten brother. He wasn't loud, he wasn't brash, he didn't preach masculinity on TikTok, but he was always there. In every frame, just off to the side. In every deal, just under the surface. They called Andrew the top G. He was the face, the voice, and the villain. But every king needs a strategist. And sometimes, the most dangerous man in the room is the one who doesn't speak. Who was he really? A shadow? A partner? Or the real architect? Because when the empire fell, when the Matrix finally struck back, it didn't just take down Andrew. It took Tristan. And he didn't even blink. What does a man know? What does he carry if he's willing to burn with the kingdom rather than step away from it?
When I say I come from the very bottom and I made it to the very top, I can now say very bottom. If I'd never been in the homeless shelter, not quite, So it's part of my story. Like, it didn't hit as hard as I guess it would now, being as wealthy as I was. If I found myself where I was in a homeless shelter with my kids, it would be much more of a culture shock. But when you're a kid, I just moved country, my brain was all over the place. I never really adjusted to how unusual it was until I was much older. And even throughout that time, I always had my brother. We always had each other's backs.
Luton, England, a town where dreams go to rust, where broken glass and bedding slips line the gutters, where a council flat isn't a setback, it's a sentence. That's where he grew up. Not in mansions, not in nightclubs, but in silence. His mother held 3 jobs. His father played chess with ghosts. Tristan watched, listened, and absorbed. He learned to move without being seen, to read people without hearing them speak, to disappear in a room and still know everything that happened in it. A younger brother in a world built by older men. No handouts, no shortcuts, only friction. He wasn't loud, but he remembered everything. The names of the debt collectors, the silence after broken promises, the way his mother's hands shook on payday, and the chessboard, always the chessboard. 2 boys with one path. That path was escape, but not just from poverty, from insignificance, from weakness. Their father taught them chess, but not softly. No mercy, no rewinds. You lost, you learned. And Tristan, he played in silence, moved with purpose. Andrew was the flame, while Tristan was the flint. He didn't talk back. He watched how people moved, how power moved, how weakness smelled, how silence could dominate. He saw early that charisma could open doors, but discipline kept them open. And somewhere between the screaming neighbors and secondhand school books, he made a promise to himself. Never be small again. Never be forgotten. It started with a punch, not in a ring, not even in a gym, but in a hallway, outside a classroom. Tristan was 14. He didn't throw it, he took it, without flinching or punching back. That moment wasn't about violence, it was about control. Dominance without movement, power without chaos. The school called home. His mother came late, tired, said little. But his brother? Andrew watched with interest, not because of the fight, but because Tristan didn't fight back. He asked, "Why didn't you hit him?" Tristan said, "Because I already won." That was the first spark. He had felt something in that moment. Not pain, not pride, but clarity. Not long after, the Tate boys found a gym. Small, dusty, and cold. A converted garage in a dead-end street. No heating, no mirrors, no audience. Tristan walked in, and something clicked. He wasn't loud. He didn't brag. He didn't scream in training. He just repeated. Again and again. Until the repetition became ritual. He wasn't a natural. He was methodical. Where Andrew chased impact, Tristan hunted precision. He'd stay after hours, watching others spar, taking notes, noticing how a left foot always twitched before a jab, how fatigue showed first in the knees, how fear shows in the eyes. He studied fighters like blueprints, broke down their angles, their posture, their tells. He didn't want to win. He wanted to understand why people win, why some break and others don't. Tristan's mind was wired for pattern, rhythm, and anticipation. He saw the ring as a chessboard. And when he began winning, small amateur bouts, local cards, he didn't celebrate. No raised fists, no flexes for cameras, just a quiet exit. Andrew started filming everything. He loved the spotlight. Tristan started logging everything. He loved the symmetry. The trigger wasn't glory. It was the realization. Violence was structure, a system, a code, a ritual that revealed who really had control. And if there's a system, Tristan could learn it. Bend it, beat it. He didn't find kickboxing. He found silence that hits back. He found control disguised as chaos. And he knew this was just the beginning. It was 2007. Tristan Tate was 19. Not famous, not rich. Just a kid in Luton with calloused knuckles and a quiet obsession. By now, the brothers were inseparable in the gym. Andrew talked while Tristan listened. Andrew fought for dominance. Tristan fought for data. They trained like machines. Morning runs in the fog. Evening pads in the cold. No crowd, no reward. Just sweat, tape, repetition. Tristan's early fights weren't glamorous. Pub circuits, dusty halls, folding chairs. Only 10 people in the crowd. But his precision was starting to show. At this point, money was tight, very tight. They were scraping by on fight purses barely enough to cover rent. No sponsorships, no stable income. A few £100 per bout, sometimes even less. They borrowed gear, ate whatever was cheap. The idea of wealth was still abstract, but not forgotten. Every bruise was an investment. Every night without heat, a down payment on something bigger. Tristan didn't dream of millions, not yet, but he was building something quietly, something durable. He'd read a fighter's rhythm within seconds, knew when a left hand dropped, when a step was too heavy. He could dismantle aggression with footwork alone. By 2008, he had a streak, 6-0. By 2010, he had a name. Not loud, but known. In underground circles, in regional circuits, he was the one they whispered about. The younger Tate, the quiet one, the sharp one. His style wasn't brawling, it was dissection. And between fights, he didn't party. He didn't boast. He read, studied, and rested. He started logging patterns in a black notebook. How opponents moved under stress. How referees favored aggression. How breathing changed just before a knockout. Each fight was more than a match. It was a test, a thesis. By 2011, he had 2 regional titles. Nothing international. Nothing massive, but real, earned. That same year, something unusual happened. Tristan stepped out of the gym and onto television. He joined Shipwrecked, The Island, a British reality TV show filmed in isolation. No gloves, no ring, just personalities, cameras, and competition. Why? That was the question.
It's funny, I was on YouTube the other day and a recommended video pops up and it's you on a reality TV show.
Oh, yeah.
When was that?
That was 11 and a half years ago. I was 23.
What's the story behind that?
There is no story. And I never really got famous from it because you have to understand, I was on a reality show before Instagram existed.
What was it called?
The Shipwrecked.
Shipwrecked, yeah.
Shipwrecked. It was a popular British television show. And I didn't do it for fame and I didn't do it for clout or money. I was Z-list famous in the UK for about 4 months after that show aired. Then it disappeared. But I was for a time recognized in the streets, etc. I only did it because, and this is going to sound hilarious now, I think it's the first time I've ever said this. They said, yeah, it's this tropical island and you go there and you're on this tropical island for 2 months, 3 months. And I just remember thinking, oh, this is an experience I probably won't ever be rich enough to replicate. So,
a man who avoids the spotlight, choosing to live among strangers on national television. He wasn't the loudest, but his presence was magnetic, calm, watchful, the one you couldn't quite figure out. It didn't make him famous, not yet, but it planted a seed. Why would a man so drawn to control place himself in a game designed around chaos? Maybe he wasn't testing fame. Maybe he was testing himself. One thing was clear. Even in front of cameras, Tristan wasn't trying to be seen. He was trying to see. And when the show ended, he disappeared again. Back into silence, back into training. He hadn't abandoned his path. He was just learning how visibility works. Until it snapped. In 2012, a misstep in Transylvania. A torn shoulder during a takedown. 1 second of imbalance. That's all it took. Career, done. Fight path, over. He didn't rage, beg, or cry. He adapted. Because power isn't just in fists. It's in what you do next. And Tristan Tate was just getting started. In 2013, the gloves were hung up. The shoulder didn't heal right. He could still train, but not compete. Not at that level. So he pivoted. Andrew had already found his lane. Provocation, social virality, aggressive self-branding. But someone had to build the machine behind the man. That was Tristan. They launched websites, tried all sorts of hustle. Then came the webcam business. At first, it was just a few girls, a couple laptops, cheap lighting. Then it scaled. Fast. Tristan wasn't on camera. He ran operations. He studied funnels, built systems, managed schedules, tracked time, performance, and language. By 2015, they were making serious money. Not millions, yet, but enough to move out of Luton, enough for watches. Tailored suits and imported whiskey, they moved to Romania. Why?
You guys have traveled all across the world, pretty much.
all across the world.
Where would you? What made you pick Romania as like your like your center?
Many reasons, and I don't like to talk politics because I'm not a political guy. Look at what's happening in Canada right now. Now, most of the Western world is like that, and I wanted somewhere free from that kind of bullshit. I like Romania very much. It's a very hostile environment. It's not a touristy place, but if you build a life for yourself here, you're free to live your fucking life. Unlike Canada or the UK or a lot of places in the United States. So I guess that is one of my main motivations. And people will say stupid things to me like, oh, you go out there because, the women are easy to sleep with. Wrong. Women in, no offense, the United States, Miami, London, Germany, Paris, they're easy to sleep with. Girls in Romania are not easy to sleep with at all. But this is like playing it on hard mode. They are beautiful, but much harder to sleep with than a typical girl in London. I just like it out here. It has nothing to do with women.
Cheaper and safer, more leverage, fewer rules, and more space to build. While Andrew grew louder, Tristan grew sharper. He learned how to speak to banks, to crypto exchanges, to high-end clients. He stayed off Twitter, avoided the spotlight, but everyone in the circle knew. Andrew was the face. Tristan was the engine. A few years later, they started Hustlers University, the War Room, mentorship networks, affiliate models, layered systems. It wasn't just about content. It was about control. Every account, every view, every dollar. Tristan watched them all. He dressed like a Don, but operated like a CFO. Some said he was just the quieter brother, but insiders knew Tristan wasn't in the background. He was in command. And for the first time, he wasn't following Andrew. He was building something of his own, in silence, with gloves off and eyes open. By 2021, the Tate operation was global. Webcams, crypto, real estate, courses and streams. Millions were flowing in, quietly, until it wasn't. In 2022, their presence exploded. Andrew became a lightning rod, bold, abrasive, omnipresent on TikTok and YouTube. But Tristan was always there, just behind him. He wasn't the loud one, but he was the one people wanted to know more about.
Well, from a networking standpoint, the number one thing you have to remember, because I'm now at a stage in my life where a lot of people want to get to know me, so I see it from the other end. As a younger man, I would introduce myself to people and try to get to know them because they were important. Now I'm on the other side of the equation. The main thing to remember is that if you treat people like you're a fan, then they're going to treat you like you're one of the fans. That's it. If you treat people like a celebrity, they're going to treat you like a fan. So many years ago, even when I was not famous and not even relatively successful, or before I had any money, when I would meet famous people, I met a few famous actors through my kickboxing. You'd speak to them one-on-one, like a normal person. You'd introduce yourself. You'd ask them their name even, not in an obnoxious way, even if you already know what it is. And the best way to go about it is when you're working the room and you finally get face-to-face with these people. Do not ask for selfies. Do not ask for pictures. Do not act shocked or surprised or like a fan. Do not worship them. When I was sitting with that famous rapper the other day, just sat down on the couch. We were shooting the shit man to man for over 45 minutes, an hour. I didn't ask him about his songs. I didn't ask him about his music. And we just talked like men. So that's the best way to network, I guess, is that when you finally do get the opportunity to speak to people, speak to them like a normal person. Otherwise, they're never going to take you seriously.
Clips of them together went viral. Andrew ranting, Tristan listening, Andrew shouting, Tristan smiling. And then the shift. Tristan started talking, not often, but when he did, people listened. His tone was colder, sharper, more refined. He spoke like someone who had nothing to prove, only something to protect. Follower counts surged, brand deals multiplied, public image evolved. He was no longer just the brother. He was the myth in the margins, the strategist in the storm. And now they weren't just wealthy. They were world famous, symbols, flashpoints, icons, or threats, depending who you asked. Because success at that level doesn't stay invisible, and control, real control, always triggers resistance. First came the media, clickbait headlines, YouTube exposes, accusations. Then came the banks, frozen accounts, flagged transactions, suspicious patterns, and finally, governments.
It's interesting that anybody even believes any of it anymore, or talks about it anymore. But I think most people on the street understand it was a setup, and it was a setup. The UK Foreign Office, I'll say this now, the UK Foreign Office instructed the Romanians to get me off of the internet. And the Romanians are mercenaries for hire. And they thought, well, he's not a Romanian citizen, he's a British citizen who's just living here, and they want to deal with him, so let's deal with him.
Wow.
So that's what happened.
So they're the aggressor, they're the fuel behind the whole thing, the UK government.
Yeah, it wasn't the Dems. I thought it was the Democrats. They signed off on it.
Right.
It was actually the UK government.
Controversial influencer Andrew Tate and his brother Tristan are reportedly busted on sex trafficking allegations.
Tristan stayed calm. He always had, but behind closed doors, pressure was mounting. Wire transfers delayed, lawyers retained, phones tapped. Andrew leaned into the chaos. He taunted, provoked, fed the fire. Tristan adjusted. He started changing systems, rotating payment processors, shifting assets into crypto vaults, shell companies in Dubai, Malta, and Cyprus. He didn't argue with the matrix. He outmaneuvered it. But the loopholes started closing. Social media bans, bank shutdowns, investigations from multiple countries. The machine they built wasn't just visible now. It was vulnerable. They called it a scam. It was criminal. And suddenly, the forgotten brother wasn't so forgettable. His name was now on files, reports, even on watch lists. But it wasn't just law enforcement that turned. It was the platforms, the infrastructure. Stripe canceled them. Discord banned them. YouTube shadow banned them. And the empire, so perfectly built, began to flicker. The servers kept running. The affiliates kept pushing. But the world was catching up. The Matrix was adapting. They had built a system outside the system. And now the system was pulling them back in. And the quiet operator had a new problem. The world had found his coordinates. And it was triangulating an endgame. In 2024, the world knew their names now. The Tate brothers weren't just trending. They were polarizing. Loved, hated, and feared. But fame isn't a finish line. It's an accelerant. Tristan started stepping forward more. The interviews became bolder. The suits sharper. The tone colder. He wasn't just the man behind the machine anymore. He was stepping into the frame. They built the war room into a fortress of loyalty. Hand-picked men, global events, cryptic hierarchy, allegiance through wealth, secrecy, and of course brotherhood. Tristan didn't preach like Andrew. He recruited. They flew private, traveled in convoys, held secret dinners in castles. And through it all, he looked untouchable. But it was more than style. It was a belief that they had beaten the system. Not dodged it, beaten it. No rules applied anymore. They weren't just rich, they were sovereign. Different passports, off-grid properties, cash and crypto, lawyers on speed dial. Tristan started launching ventures separate from Andrew. Luxury concierge, services, secret investments, property syndicates. He was preparing his own empire, quietly. And for a moment, it looked like he might escape the spotlight, slip back into the shadows with power intact. But hubris doesn't whisper, it shouts. And while Andrew burned bright online, Tristan made one silent error. He believed silence was immunity. He believed the storm wouldn't look twice at the man in the background. He was wrong. That night, everything changed. Not with a bang, but with a knock. And a voice. Open the door. March 2024. The second arrest. This time, it wasn't Romania calling. It was the United Kingdom. A forming request. New charges. Sexual abuse. Trafficking. Exploitation. The Tate brothers, once again in handcuffs. But this time, the tone had shifted. There was no shock, just inevitability. Tristan said nothing. Again. Same cuffs, different country, same silence, different stakes. They were no longer the loudest voices online. They were case numbers, court dates, legal liabilities. The empire, once sleek and sovereign, now looked like a trap built by its own architects. And the brother who once thrived in the shadows now stood in the harshest light yet. Not as a mystery, but as a defendant. They called him the architect, the recruiter, the handler. Was it true, or just a convenient narrative? Inside the cells, time slowed. House arrest, surveillance, isolation. No more jet engines, no more vaults. Tristan spent his days reading court documents, training in the yard, staring through glass. The matrix he once outplayed had reset the board, and now he was the piece. His silence, once a weapon, now looked like surrender. His calm, once mystique, now looked like guilt. And Andrew? Still ranting, still deflecting. But Tristan had no speeches, just stares. No more recruiting, no more suits, just a cell, a name, and questions. Was this justice or a message? Was he the villain or just the collateral? Today, Tristan Tate walks free, not exonerated, not condemned, somewhere in between. No verdict, just tension. The world has moved on, mostly, but not entirely. Clips of him still circulate. Sound bites, quotes, fan edits, images of him lighting cigars or staring through mirrored sunglasses. His silence became culture. People projected meaning into it. Some called him stoic. Others called it strategic. Others still calculated cowardice. The myth grew larger than the man. What remains? A name that no one can fully explain. A brotherhood that changed how the internet talks about masculinity. An empire, half genius, half illusion. Tristan never tried to be a hero, and maybe he never was. But in an age where everyone screams for attention, he whispered, and somehow everyone listened. Was he the strategist, the enabler, the architect, or just a man who outsmarted everyone, even his own brother?
I know you're not following what I'm saying anyway, right? That's okay, that doesn't matter. The real question is this: is all this legal? Absolutely fucking not.